think you mentioned that new leadership in Napier, that is there a sort of a new start and prospects of better collaboration?
Yeah, we're exceptionally positive. We had a great meeting yesterday and touched on a number of things around working together and regional engagement, so very positive.
That's good. And just as an observation, I mean, there's good incremental improvements to infrastructure, the trails, the museum, the stuff that's happening on the Marine Parade, the hockey ground in Hastings. It's all going to help, isn't it?
And you know, it's time. You know, we needed this lift, and the museum being open's really kicked off. You know, lots of new stuff for us to talk about, which in tourism you need to be competitive, and we compete with our other neighbours over the hill and everyone else. And so anything new and fabulous, such as MTG, etc., it all adds to the tourism equation. It's fantastic.
Right. I'd say that the external perception of what's happening in Hawke's Bay now has radically shifted from where it was over the last 2 or 3 years. There is a sense of action and optimism that wasn't there before, and that's come through these various developments that are going on now. And I can say that because I obviously observed this from Wellington.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt.
Welcome to all of you, and George, Annie, Sam, thank you for your presentation. It was absolutely whirlwind. I was thinking, oh, slow down. I was really interested in so many things. But look, I have completed my dissertation for my master's degree in enhancing global opportunities for New Zealand in agribusiness. So I'm really interested in where you're going and how Hawke's Bay can benefit in this instance here around the council table. Have you looked at any opportunities for the food basket approach so that we can be shouldering on the tourists that are coming here who are going home to be reliving their experiences and their memories, and this may well tap into your area, Sam, of expertise, but to be able to be selling the New Zealand products, the Hawke's Bay products, so they can be reliving that, is that somewhere you're heading? Yeah,
actually, it's funny, I took the slide out, but we the way we head to trade shows has traditionally been stick a lovely picture up and off you go. And actually, this year in June, we took a whole farmers market to the show, and so we had apples and olive oil and dams and jam and created, and a bike for the trails and everything else. So we created a sense of this is what we're about, this food concept, and it captured everybody's imagination, and it was something a little different. And so that's how we want to take ourselves to Trends, which is our big international show, and really start to talk up that aspect. I'd love the airport to be selling olive oil and wine and Hawke's Bay produce. Everyone leaving take something else away with them. So yeah.
Because my experience is that there are a number of iwi groups that are doing this really well now as a result of some of our travels that I've had through Asia, and that whole food basket approach is just fantastic. You can tap into many areas. Yeah.
Also, one of the background goals of Hawke was to establish this sort of premier food and wine event for the Bay, because it does focus on exactly that, and that gives you sort of a launching platform for other things as well along those lines, so selling the whole region, just not the tourism experience.
Thank you. Councillor Pipe.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to talk about, Hawke. Well done on that too. But I just wanted to talk about, you've been driving Hawke pretty much through Hawke's Bay tourism. So is there going to be a time when you're going to be looking at, I mean, what's your role? Is your role of actually driving various events, or is it about the broader overarching promotion? Where do you see yourself, and where do you see yourself moving in the future?
It's a great question, and I think with Hawke, we believed that there wasn't food and wine, as to your point around the food basket idea, that the region needed something, and it needed something a little more sophisticated than a jolly great sort of alcohol fueled in a paddock. And so we have started that, and there's many discussions about where that goes. I think we're in year 2, so we've got a wee way to go, but there's lots of legs to it, and we need to clearly look at it. I mean, we would like it to be obviously cost recoverable and make a profit from it in the future, and we're heading in that direction, but we've just it's early days, but definitely it's a long-term objective to have it as a fully profitable event for the region, and we would possibly step back from some of that in terms of the organisation. Yeah.
Councillor Barker.
Given my history of moving about the planet, this is going to sound a bit hypocritical, but I've often been very sceptical about tourism and its value. I've always felt that the tourist industry has overstated the value it contributes, and was struck when I first looked at tourism here at Hawke's Bay that the largest number of tourists that came to Hawke's Bay in the early 90s was for duck shooting. This was things that people were going to do anyway, and lots of things came. So when I look at tourism and what it adds here, I quite often look and think, well, we invest a lot of time and money into this. Would we be better to do it elsewhere if our objective was simply to generate jobs and opportunities? And one of the things that Councillor Graham has talked about on a number of occasions is Hawke's Bay Appellation, which comes back to what Debbie, Councillor, is talking about. Would we generate more jobs and more revenue out of that rather than tourism? So the point I come to is that I came to this presentation here as a bit of a sceptic. And I want to say to you that your presentation has impressed me. I think you've got some really good ideas here. And I think you've got a better plan for Hawke's Bay tourism than I've seen for quite a long time. You've turned my mind around on this today, and I wish you well, and I think you've got some good product here. And I agree with Councillor Graham in that tourism is important to the region because it makes people who live here feel good. They like to think that other people who come here and look at them and talk to them, so it makes us feel good about who we are and what we are, and you cannot underestimate that. But on the other side of it, I think we do have to be mindful that on occasions its benefits that it's supposed to generate are quite often overstated. And I'll give you nothing other than San Francisco and the sailing company. We've got a list of things we could go through which
we understand.
Over-promise and under-deliver, but I think your presentations will be very good. It gives me confidence that we're in good hands here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Remove the report. Give it a second. You wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I think all the comments have actually been made already, but thank you again to all of you. And I always enjoy your presentations, and this was a very good one. Thank you for circulating the material that is showing how much we're getting highlighted widely. And all the best for the future, and I guess we will look forward to your justifying a good case for continued funding.
Good.
So
I'll just have one last brief comment and then wish you Merry Christmas, etc. But just to you guys, it's been a pleasure working with you as a director for the last 3 years. The growth has been impressive, and I think what's impressed me here today is how the presentation has been picked up. We are going ahead, we are going forward. New broom and certain councils, things seem to be shifting quite quickly, and it's all about relationships at the end of the day. So thank you very much, and I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just thank the councillors for their support over the last 3 years? It's been fantastic. And could I say to you, Mr. Chairman, we've enjoyed having you as part of our board. I think it's been extremely useful to us. Helpful, hopefully for you too.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Vicky, by the way, who didn't get to introduce herself. But Vicky Roebuck keeps the wheels turning. Okay, let's go back to HBRC Board of Directors membership and constitution, and possibly get through this in reasonable time. Andrew, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, I'd like to introduce, if you haven't already met him, Andrew Wears, who's a partner at Sainsbury, Logan and Williams, and is here in place of Mr. Webster today to answer questions that you may have. But look, I'll just...
Page 31.
Thank you. We separated this out from the remainder of the recommendations from the Corporate and Strategic Committee meeting that was held a week ago because of some of the discussion that was held at the time and some of the things that we could see needed some further clarification around implementation. So I'm actually going to work my way through the actual recommendations that I'm asking you to vote on today on page 33. And if we can just look at those, I just really want to help clarify where the changes have been made, and then some brief discussion around why. But recommendations 1, 2 and 3 are exactly the same as the Corporate and Strategic Committee recommendations last week. So that's around resolving to appoint Ms Dinsdale and Mr Faulkner as directors to replace the 3 council directors on the transition board. The period still is up to the 30th of June 2014, and clause 8.1 of the Constitution could be amended accordingly. The main changes are in recommendation. Well, the main change is in recommendation 4. What we had by actually changing clause 8.3, we had an issue around then timing of the taking effect of those appointments, because we refer to a policy, a council policy on the appointment of directors, and then had gone on to discuss how we would develop that, bring it back to you in March of next year for final adoption prior to the replacement of the transition board with a permanent board. So the solution, having talked to initially Mr Webster straight after the Corporate and Strategic Committee meeting, the solution that we came up with to overcome that particular hiccup was to develop a very, very brief, but hopefully effective, interim policy, which really just says that exactly what the discussion was last week, that you will not appoint any council directors to the board. This is the transition board we're talking about. That any appointments that are made to the board will be independent, and then obviously just to cover ourselves as well, if the need arises in addition to those already appointed, so if someone was to resign or retire, directors will be appointed based on merit. So that's just to clarify those particular changes as well. So that. The intent of this is that this particular policy would take effect from today if you were to approve it, and it would be replaced as soon as you adopt the new, much more fulsome, permanent policy, which will go into a lot more detail around how appointments are made, how directors may be replaced, etc., etc. So there's a consequential change then under recommendation 5, because we now talk about a final appointment and remuneration of directors policy as opposed to a policy. Recommendation 6 on page 34 is the same as that from the Corporate and Strategic meeting, as is recommendation 7. And the only other change that I want to discuss with you is one that was also pointed out last week around a quorum. We have to remove reference to the 2 council directors and just replace that a quorum should include not less than 3 directors. So those are the key changes. Back in the paper, there's some discussion around the policy, around the quorum, and also there was some discussion last week around the role of the managing director. If you adopt this today, he will no longer be a formal board member, but obviously he'll continue to provide his oversight.
Ask a question about that.
Yep.
If he's no longer a voting member of the board, he's no longer managing director.
Well, we could change his title, but it's he'd still perform the functions of a manager of the investment company.
What was the rationale for taking away his right?
Well, he never actually votes at any board meetings anyway, so he was quite comfortable with not being a formal board member. And I guess there's been an issue around perception of conflict of interest there too.
The formation of, it's a growing phase. The formation, if you think back to the formation of the HBRC board and its interim phase, which it still is in, the thought at the time of the council was to put him in as managing director to give him some, direct ability to vote on decisions, etc., as a managing director. But actually, in hindsight, that's not really necessary. So he's quite comfortable to move back to being the chief executive of HBRC at this time.
Chief executive.
Yeah.
Okay.